On the morning of the accident, I was going down a big long stretch of a country lane, which is known as quite a fast road. The beauty of that road is you can see miles ahead. And then I remember seeing pinpoint headlights in the distance. And then the next thing, there was just an enormous explosion. And that's the only thing I can describe it. It was just glass and noise and heat and smoke and the smell. I just didn't know what had happened. And then everything started to settle and I realised that I'd been hit head on and I never saw it coming. As soon as the dust had settled and I started with my ABC, which I use at work all the time, and I thought, right, okay, I've got an airway, I couldn't feel anything, I was completely numb, and then I thought to myself, hang on a minute, am I dead? And it sounds like the most mad thing, but I thought to myself, maybe I'm dead and maybe this is how it feels to be dead. And then I had a word with myself and thought, right, I'm obviously not dead. There was nothing around for miles. I thought, I've survived this and I'm going to sit and bleed out. But I didn't. And I think it was about then that I realised how much pain I was in. The car that had hit me ended up alongside me facing the same way, and I could hear him obstructing his airway. And obviously my job as an anaesthetist, the first thing you do when you hear that sound is get out and open their airway. And I was actually trying to get out of the car to get to him. It was just, I thought, I'm just going to bloody die on this road. I can't describe the pain. I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. And normally you would think you would be in a blind panic about that. But I was so calm, it just didn't occur to me that I couldn't feel my legs. And it was only when I got to the resus at the hospital when they were assessing me that I realised that actually I couldn't feel anything from my waist down. I was put in the CT scanner and told that I had an H-shaped pelvic fracture, also had several open wounds. I had lots of injuries to my ribs. I had rib fractures, I had seatbelt bruising, my hand was almost degloved, this whole bit was pulled back. My thumb had this, it's called a tuft fracture, it was fractured in 7 places. My wrist was fractured in 3 places. My pelvis was fractured in 5 places. And I also had something called spinopelvic dissociation, so my spine and my pelvis became disconnected, and that's what caused the spinal injury. So I had a traumatic cauda equina injury, which is what's given me the long-term nerve problems and the long-term nerve damage and dysfunction. I remember my partner came in and he'd obviously seen them assessing foot movement by, dragging a pen at the sole of your foot, and he did, every time he came in he would do that just to see if there was any kind of flicker, and that's when they kind of said to me that it was 50-50 whether I would actually regain any function in the lower part of my body. I think the worst part was that I might never regain bladder and bowel function. I think that was, that was worse than not being able to walk. But I'm quite tough, and it's sorted now. I was actually in hospital for a month, but they'd planned for me to be in for longer than that. But I was absolutely certain that I would be out for my 50th birthday. So for about 3 months, I wasn't allowed to bend for any more than, I can't remember how many degrees it was now, but I couldn't bend for fear of knackering all the metalwork. So I had to have all these adjustments that I never thought of, all these things that I couldn't do. had to get a new bed, and I had to get, different chairs and toilet raises and all the hideous things that you see in hospital and just think, well, I hope that never happens to me. But I did. I got home. They kept my bed open for me. I came home on my 50th birthday. The driver that hit me, that died at the scene, was not insured. So I was absolutely bereft. I just thought, well, that's it. That is it. I get nothing, absolutely nothing, for the rest of my life. And my solicitor told me about the MIB. So we were introduced to a link at the MIB, and they just took over and just sorted everything out. It was like private healthcare. I was so desperate to get up and going. I'd had no physio and no follow-up from the hospital that I was discharged from. And I mean, for anything, I had so many investigations for years after the accident. I had urology, I had colorectal, I had gynae, I had orthopedic, I had neurology. All of these things were just completely taken care of. The physio, I saw a physio every week for months and months and months. And it was just, for me, psychologically, that was the other thing, psychologically, they paid for a load of counselling right from the get-go, which I truly believe has set me up for how I am now, back at work and reasonably positive. And I that sort of stuff, I wouldn't have had any clue how to access any of it. I think if I hadn't have had the MIB's input and support, I would have really struggled, because I would have had no idea where to access. I wouldn't even have known that half of the services and things that I had were available. I wouldn't have had a clue, and I certainly wouldn't have pushed it. And I think I probably would have got very upset and very down, because I wouldn't have had the purpose that I had for that 6 months before I went back to work, to get my rehab done, to do my physio, to make the appointments, to attend the appointments. I just would have been rudderless, I think. So since the accident, my life has changed. There's no escaping it. I can't do the things that I used to do. I used to be a very keen cyclist. I used to cycle to work on my road bike. I was a reasonably good runner, despite my age. I was good for my age. I've got a wonky pelvis now. Where they put me back together, I'm not the same shape, so it's a bit kind of strange. I've got multiple scars. I've got a numb right leg. I've had lots of things, for example, like nerve scans that the MIB facilitated, and they've shown that one of the nerves in my leg isn't working at all, so I've got quite a lot of wasting to my leg. My right foot is not that attractive. It's a little bit clawed, and it's freezing cold all the time because of the nerve damage. It's just a little bit smaller than my other foot, but again, I've had orthotics, and again, that was arranged by the MIB. I've had brilliant orthotics. I've got insoles for my shoes. I get quite a lot of pain. I get cramps at night, and there's no rhyme nor reason to it. They'll just suddenly come just in that right leg. But I'm not on any medication for it. I just manage it. And I do fatigue. If I do a long walk, then I do know about it. My right leg is fatigued, and that's something that I'm not used to, because I'm used to just being able to go for a 10k run and come back and then cycle to work. And it's really frustrating, because it's not a mental thing. It's not something you can overcome mentally. When your muscles and nerves have packed up, they've packed up. But I still can get about, and I still do most of the things that I used to do, but I would say I'm not as resilient anymore, and I would say that I won't take risks anymore. And the things that I had planned to do, like going skiing, I've never been skiing, I wouldn't do, because I would just be nervous about fracturing my pelvis and being in that situation again. So it's clipped my wings a bit. And actually, I do remember somebody saying to me when they came to visit me in hospital when I was still in the resus in Bristol, they said to me, well, this will clip your wings a bit. and actually I've never forgotten it.